November 14th, 1958. 10:47 p.m. The Lenox Lounge sits on 125th Street like a jewel box carved from smoke and amber light. Inside, the air tastes like expensive bourbon and cheaper lies. Ellsworth Bumpy Johnson owns a corner booth near the back exit, not for escape, but for perspective. From there, he can see everyone who enters. And everyone who leaves. Tonight, he's watching Councilman Robert Halloway. Halloway arrived 20 minutes ago with 4 men in matching gray suits. Not NYPD. Not muscle. Lawyers. He didn't ask permission to enter. Didn't nod toward Bumpy's table. Didn't acknowledge the unwritten rule that's governed Harlem nightlife for the past 15 years. You don't walk into Bumpy's world without paying respect. Instead, Halloway takes the center table, the one reserved for visiting dignitaries and people Bumpy wants seen. He orders champagne. Dom Perignon. Loud enough for the whole room to hear. Then he makes his announcement. "Gentlemen," Halloway says, standing, projecting his voice across the lounge like he's addressing a campaign rally. Harlem is changing. The old ways, the backroom deals, the protection rackets, the numbers running, those days are finished. I'm here tonight to announce the Harlem Renaissance Initiative. Federal funding. Legal businesses. Clean streets. He pauses. Looks directly at Bumpy's booth. We're taking back our neighborhood. The pianist stops mid-phrase. Conversations die. Even the bartender freezes with a bottle halfway to a glass. This isn't a policy speech. This is a declaration of war. Bumpy doesn't move. Doesn't blink. His expression remains as still as cathedral stone. But his driver, Terrence, leans in close and whispers, "Boss, you want me to?" "No." One word. Barely audible. Because Bumpy already knows what Halloway doesn't, this moment was inevitable. The councilman won his seat 4 months ago on a reform platform, promised to clean up corruption, and organized crime's grip on Harlem, restore dignity to black neighborhoods that white politicians had abandoned. Noble words. Popular words. Dangerous words. What Halloway doesn't understand is that Bumpy Johnson isn't just a criminal. He's infrastructure. When a city won't collect garbage from black neighborhoods, Bumpy's men do it. When banks won't give loans to black business owners, Bumpy's money does. When the police won't investigate crimes against black families, Bumpy's justice does. Remove him, and Harlem doesn't get cleaner. It collapses. But Halloway isn't thinking about infrastructure tonight. He's thinking about headlines. About federal attention. About a Senate run in 2 years. And to get there, he needs a villain. Someone the newspapers will love to hate. Someone whose downfall will make him look like a hero. He's chosen Bumpy Johnson. The councilman finishes his champagne, leaves 2 crisp $100 bills on the table, an insult, not a payment, and walks toward the exit. His lawyers follow. At the door, he stops. Turns back. "Mr. Johnson," he calls across the silent room. "I'll be holding a press conference Monday morning. City Hall. 9 a.m. I'm announcing a federal task force. Racketeering. Tax evasion. Witness cooperation agreements." He smiles. "I'd invite you, but I suspect you'll be otherwise occupied." The door closes behind him. For 3 long seconds, nobody moves. Then Bumpy sets down his drink. Stands. Straightens his cuffs. Walks to the bar and picks up the telephone receiver. He dials a number from memory. "Marcus," he says quietly. "I need you to find out everything about Councilman Halloway. Family. Debts. Secrets. Everything." A pause. "And I need it by Sunday night." Marcus Webb hangs up the phone in his apartment on 132nd Street and stares at the ceiling. He's 31 years old. Harvard Law graduate. Passed the New York bar on his first attempt. And for the past 6 years, he's been Bumpy Johnson's researcher, the man who finds leverage, identifies weaknesses, builds cases that never see the inside of a courtroom. His mother thinks he works for a private investigation firm. She's not entirely wrong. Marcus pulls on his coat and checks his watch, 11:23 p.m. He has 38 hours to compile a complete dossier on a sitting city councilman who just declared war on the most powerful man in Harlem. 38 hours to find something, anything, that will make Halloway back down before Monday's press conference. 38 hours to prevent a bloodbath. Because Marcus knows what others don't, Bumpy doesn't want violence. Never has. Violence is expensive, unpredictable, and draws federal attention. Bumpy's power comes from information, from knowing which alderman has gambling debts, which police captain has a mistress, which judge has a son with a heroin problem. But if Halloway forces Bumpy's hand, if Monday's press conference happens, there won't be a choice. Marcus grabs his briefcase and heads downstairs. His landlady, Mrs. Patterson, is sweeping the front steps despite the late hour. "Working again?" she asks. "Baby, you need rest. You look thin." "Big case, Mrs. P. I'll sleep next week." "That's what you said last month." She stops sweeping, looks at him with the kind of concern that makes his chest tight. "Marcus, you're a good boy. Smart. You could be doing anything. Working anywhere. Why you still in Harlem running around at midnight?" "Because my sister needs medicine that costs $300 a month," he doesn't say. "Because NYU Hospital won't treat her lupus without insurance, and the only lawyer jobs that pay enough are downtown firms that wouldn't hire a black Harvard graduate if he argued before the Supreme Court. Because Bumpy Johnson pays me 4 times what any white law firm would. Because I don't have a choice. I like the neighborhood," he says instead, and kisses her cheek. The city records office closes at 5, but Marcus has a key, courtesy of a clerk named Donald who owes Bumpy for getting his nephew out of a statutory rape charge that would have ended his teaching career. Marcus lets himself in through the back entrance, navigates the dark hallways by memory, and reaches the filing room. He starts with property records. Councilman Robert Halloway. Born 1919 in Atlanta, Georgia. Moved to Harlem in 1946 after serving in the 92nd Infantry Division. Married to Patricia Halloway, née Morrison, in 1947. 2 children, Robert Jr., age 9, and Caroline, age 6. Clean record. No arrests. No lawsuits. No bankruptcies. Marcus digs deeper. Tax returns show modest income, councilman's salary plus speaking fees. Owns a brownstone on Strivers Row, purchased in 1952 for $18,000. Current estimated value, $32,000. The mortgage payments are up to date. No obvious financial pressure. Marcus pulls campaign finance records. Halloway's election fund shows contributions from 47 donors, all small amounts, all traceable to Harlem residents and business owners. No suspicious corporate money. No out-of-state cash. The man is exactly what he appears to be, a legitimate reformer. Which makes him infinitely more dangerous. Marcus works until 3 in the morning, building a timeline of Halloway's life, mapping his connections, identifying anyone who might provide leverage. He finds nothing. No affairs. No hidden debts. No criminal associates. At 3:47 a.m., he almost gives up. Then he notices something in the property transfer records. The brownstone on Strivers Row. Halloway didn't buy it alone. The original deed shows 2 names, Robert Halloway and James Fenton. Joint ownership. But 8 months later, in January 1953, Fenton's name disappears. The property transfers fully to Halloway for $1. $1. Nobody sells half a Harlem brownstone for $1 unless they're desperate, dying, or being forced out. Marcus pulls James Fenton's records. No death certificate. No forwarding address. No subsequent property purchases in New York. James Fenton vanished. Marcus sits back in his chair, heart racing. This might be nothing, a friend helping another friend, a clean transaction between brothers in arms. Or it might be everything. A secret. A vulnerability. A lie that Councilman Halloway has been protecting for 5 years. He checks his watch, 4:02 a.m. 34 hours until the press conference. Marcus gathers his notes, locks the records room, and steps into the November cold. He needs to find James Fenton. Needs to know what happened in January 1953. Needs to understand why a man would disappear and leave half a brownstone behind. But as he walks toward his car, he feels it, the weight of what he's doing. He's not investigating a criminal. He's digging up dirt on a man trying to save Harlem from people like Bumpy Johnson. From people like Marcus himself. He thinks about his sister. About the medicine. About the choice he made 6 years ago when Bumpy offered him a job and he said yes. He gets in his car. He drives toward the train station to check departure records from winter 1953. Because he doesn't have the luxury of a conscience. Not anymore. Saturday, November 15th, 7:18 a.m. Marcus finds the name in Penn Station's archived passenger manifests. James Fenton. One-way ticket to Chicago. Departure date, January 9th, 1953. Seat 14B on the 6:15 a.m. Lake Shore Limited. 3 days after he signed away his half of the brownstone. Marcus copies the information, thanks the records clerk with a folded $20 bill, and walks back to his car. Chicago is a dead end, too far, too many people, too little time. But the timing tells him something. Fenton didn't leave casually. He left in a hurry. Early morning train. No return ticket. No forwarding address filed with the post office. Someone pushed him out. Marcus drives to the Harlem Public Library and requests newspaper archives from January 1953. He scrolls through microfiche until his eyes burn, looking for anything, accidents, crime scandals, involving James Fenton's name. Nothing. He's about to quit when he finds it. Not in the news section. In the obituaries. Memorial service for Private Marcus Fenton, age 19, killed in action Korea December 1952. Survived by his father, James Fenton, and uncle, Robert Halloway. Marcus reads it 3 times. James Fenton's son died in Korea 1 month before James disappeared. The memorial service was held at Abyssinian Baptist Church on January 3, 1953. 6 days later, James was on a train to Chicago and Halloway owned the entire brownstone. A father loses his only son. A week later, he loses his home. Marcus sits back, processing. This isn't corruption, it's not blackmail material. It's a family tragedy, and if he brings this to Bumpy, if he tries to weaponize a dead soldier and a grieving father. His hand shakes as he writes the notes. He tells himself it's just information. Bumpy will decide what to do with it. That's not Marcus' responsibility. His job is research, not judgment. But he knows that's a lie. He drives to Bumpy's office, a legitimate accounting firm on 145th Street that handles the books for half the small businesses in Harlem. The receptionist, Angela, waves him through. Bumpy is waiting in the back office, reading the morning papers. "Tell me something useful," Bumpy says without looking up. Marcus sets the folder on the desk. Halloway's clean. No criminal history, no financial irregularities, no affairs. But there's a property transaction that doesn't make sense. He explains the brownstone. The joint ownership. James Fenton's disappearance. Bumpy listens without interrupting. The son died in Korea, Marcus finishes. December 1952. James left Harlem a month later. I can't find any record of what happened between the funeral and the train ticket, but a grieving man doesn't sell half a brownstone for $1 and flee the city unless someone makes him, Bumpy says quietly. Yes. Bumpy closes the newspaper. Folds it precisely. Find James Fenton. He's in Chicago. I don't care if he's in Timbuktu. Find him. I need to know what Halloway did. Marcus hesitates. Boss, even if Halloway forced him out, it's not illegal. It's family business. A civil matter at best. It won't stop the press conference. I'm not looking for legal leverage, Marcus. I'm looking for moral leverage. Bumpy stands, walks to the window overlooking 145th Street. Halloway is selling himself as a righteous man. A reformer. Someone who puts principles above profit. If he destroyed a grieving father to steal a house. We don't know that's what happened. Bumpy turns. Looks at Marcus with those unblinking eyes that have stared down politicians and gangsters and corrupt cops for 20 years. Then find out. Marcus takes the folder. Starts to leave. Marcus. He stops. You look tired, Bumpy says. When this is over, take a week. See your sister. Rest. The kindness is worse than any threat. Marcus nods and leaves. By Saturday afternoon, Marcus is on a phone call to Chicago, talking to a private investigator named Calvin Reed who owes Bumpy a favor from 1954. Calvin agrees to find James Fenton, last known address, current employment, anything. I need it by tomorrow morning, Marcus says. Tomorrow's Sunday. I know what day it is. Calvin sighs. This is gonna cost extra. Send the bill to Bumpy Johnson. That ends the negotiation. Marcus spends the rest of Saturday in his apartment, drinking coffee and smoking cigarettes he doesn't usually smoke, trying not to think about what happens if they find James Fenton and the story is worse than they imagined. Trying not to think about what happens if they don't find him at all. At 11 p.m., his phone rings. It's Calvin. I found him. Marcus grabs a pen. Where? South Side. Working maintenance at a public school. Lives alone in a one-bedroom walk-up. No wife, no family. Drinks at a bar called McClellan's every Friday night. Did you talk to him? Didn't have to. I talked to his neighbor. Lady named Ruth who's lived next door for 3 years. She says James is quiet. Keeps to himself. But sometimes, late at night, she hears him crying. Marcus closes his eyes. She says he keeps a picture on his mantle. Young man in a Marine uniform. She asked him once who it was. He said, my son. The only thing I ever had worth a damn. The line goes quiet. Marcus, what do you want me to do? Marcus thinks about his sister. The medicine. The bills. The choice he made 6 years ago. Get him on the phone, Marcus says. I need to ask him about Robert Halloway. You sure? This man sounds fragile. I don't have a choice. 30 minutes later, Marcus is talking to James Fenton. The voice on the other end is rough, worn down by grief and distance. Who is this? My name is Marcus Webb. I'm calling from New York. I need to ask you about Robert Halloway. Silence. Then, I don't have anything to say about Robert. Mr. Fenton, I understand this is difficult, but you don't understand anything. The voice cracks. Robert was my brother-in-law. My friend. We served together. We came home together. We bought that house together because we were going to build something. A future. What happened? My son died. And Robert decided that a grieving drunk wasn't a good business partner. He forced you out. He gave me a choice. Sell my half and leave, or he'd file a partition lawsuit, force a sale, drag my son's name through probate court. He knew I couldn't fight. Knew I didn't have the money or the strength. Marcus writes it all down, hating every word. Mr. Fenton, I need you to come back to New York. Testify to what happened. It's important. Why? What's Robert done now? He's running for higher office. Presenting himself as a reformer. James Fenton laughs. It's a bitter, broken sound. That man stole my home while I was burying my son. And you want me to fly to New York to embarrass him? Yes. What's in it for me? Marcus opens his mouth. Closes it. Because the honest answer is, nothing. James Fenton gets nothing except the chance to relive the worst moment of his life in public. I'll pay for your ticket, Marcus says quietly. And I'll make sure the story gets told. Who are you working for? Marcus hesitates. Someone needs to stop Robert Halloway. Why? Because Halloway's about to destroy him. Another long silence. Then, I'll think about it. The line goes dead. Sunday, November 16th. 2:33 p.m. Marcus hasn't slept in 36 hours. He sits in his apartment, staring at the phone, waiting for James Fenton to call back. The press conference is tomorrow morning. 19 hours away. And he has nothing except a sad story about a dead Marine in a stolen house, Information that might humiliate Halloway but won't stop a federal task force. Won't save Bumpy. Won't save Marcus's job. His sister's medicine. His future. The phone rings at 3:07 p.m. Marcus grabs it. Fenton? No. A woman's voice. Unfamiliar. This is Patricia Halloway. Marcus's blood turns to ice. Mrs. Halloway, I don't know what. You called James Fenton last night. Asked him about my husband. About the brownstone. Her voice is calm. Too calm. James called me this morning. Told me everything. Marcus can't breathe. I need you to listen very carefully, Mr. Webb. My husband doesn't know about your call. He doesn't know you've been digging into his past. And he's not going to find out. Do you understand? Mrs. Halloway. Do you understand? Yes. Good. Because I'm going to tell you something that James Fenton doesn't know. Something nobody knows except me and Robert. She pauses. Marcus hears her take a breath. James didn't leave because Robert forced him out. He left because I asked him to. Marcus blinks. What? After Marcus Jr. died in Korea, James fell apart. Started drinking. Stopped working. He'd come to our house at 2 in the morning, screaming at Robert, blaming him for encouraging his son to enlist. Blaming him for not stopping him. That's grief. That's not all. Her voice hardens. One night, James came to the house with a gun. My children were asleep upstairs. He was drunk, incoherent, waving the pistol around, saying Robert had killed his son, saying he was going to make Robert understand what loss felt like. Marcus closes his eyes. Robert talked him down. Took the gun. Didn't call the police because he knew it would destroy James, a veteran threatening a city councilman with a weapon. It would have meant prison. So Robert made a deal. James would sell his half of the brownstone, leave New York, start over somewhere clean. We'd give him enough money to get settled. And we'd never speak of it again. The $1 sale was paperwork. Robert wired James $15,000 once he reached Chicago. Enough for a fresh start. Enough to disappear without shame. Marcus feels the floor tilting beneath him. James doesn't remember any of this, Patricia continues. The grief and the alcohol erased whole weeks. He remembers losing his son and losing his house and blames Robert for both. But the truth is, my husband saved his life. Why are you telling me this? Because you're working for Bumpy Johnson. She says the name like it's poison. And I know what Johnson does with information. He weaponizes pain. Turns private tragedy into public humiliation. If you bring James Fenton back to New York, if you put him in front of cameras and let him accuse my husband of theft, it will destroy James when he learns the truth. And it will destroy my family for trying to protect him. Marcus can't speak. My husband is trying to save Harlem, Mr. Webb. From men like Bumpy Johnson who pretend to be saviors while they poison neighborhoods with gambling and extortion and violence. Men who hire smart young lawyers and make them complicit in evil. The words hit like a blade. You have a choice, Patricia says quietly. You can give this information to Johnson and let him use it. Or you can bury it and let my husband do what he was elected to do. If I bury it, Bumpy will know I'm holding back. He'll then tell him the truth. Tell him the whole truth. That Robert Halloway saved a broken man's life and got nothing but blame in return. Let Johnson try to spin that into a scandal. The line goes quiet. I know about your sister, Marcus. I know she's sick. I know you're paying for treatment that insurance won't cover. I know you're trapped. Marcus's throat closes. But you're not a bad man. I can hear it in your voice. You don't want to do this. It doesn't matter what I want. It's the only thing that matters. She hangs up. Marcus sits in the silence of his apartment, holding the phone, feeling the weight of 6 years of choices crushing down on him. He looks at the folder on his desk. The evidence. The timeline. James Fenton's train ticket. The obituary for Marcus Fenton Jr. The property transfer. Information that looked like leverage but is actually just tragedy. He thinks about walking into Bumpy's office tomorrow morning and handing over the folder. Watching Bumpy decide whether a dead Marine and a suicidal veteran and a good man trying to protect both is enough to stop a press conference. He thinks about his sister. The lupus. The hospital bills. He thinks about Patricia Halloway's voice, "You're not a bad man." At 6:47 p.m., Marcus makes a decision. He picks up the phone and dials Bumpy's private number. Bumpy answers on the second ring. "Tell me you found something." "I found everything," Marcus says. "But it's not what you think." He tells Bumpy the whole story. The dead son. The grief. The gun. The money. Patricia's call. When he finishes, the line is silent for a long time. Finally, Bumpy speaks. "You believe her?" "Yes." "Why?" "Because she didn't have to call me. She could have let me bring Fenton back, let him destroy himself on camera, and then release the truth afterward to make us look like monsters. But she told me first. That's not strategy. That's mercy." Another silence. "Boss, we don't have leverage." "We never did. Halloway's exactly who he says he is." "Then we've lost." Marcus closes his eyes. "Yes." The press conference happens tomorrow. The task force gets announced. Federal agents start digging into every business I touch. Every person works for me. I know. Including you. Marcus feels it then, the end of everything. The job. The money. His sister's treatment. "I'm sorry," he whispers. Bumpy exhales slowly. "Marcus, I want you to do something for me. Anything. I want you to go to that press conference tomorrow. Stand in the back. Watch Halloway announce his task force. And then I want you to walk away." "What?" "You're done. Effective immediately. I'm releasing you from employment." Marcus's heart stops. "Boss, please, I need this job, my sister." "I'm not firing you, Marcus. I'm freeing you. Before the federal investigation starts. Before your name ends up in a file somewhere that follows you for the rest of your life." Bumpy's voice is calm. Final. "You're a good lawyer. A smart man. You don't belong in this world. I don't have anywhere else to go. Then find somewhere. But you're not going down with me." The line clicks dead. Marcus sits in his apartment as the sun sets over Harlem, holding a phone connected to nothing, feeling the floor disappear beneath him. He spent 6 years working for Bumpy Johnson. And in the end, the most powerful man in Harlem, protected him the only way he knew how: by letting him go. Monday, November 17th, 8:52 a.m. Marcus stands at the back of the City Hall press room, watching reporters fill the seats. He didn't sleep. Couldn't. Spent the whole night staring at his bank statement, calculating how many months he can cover his sister's medication before the money runs out. 4 months. Maybe 5 if he moves to a cheaper apartment, stops eating regularly, sells everything that isn't nailed down. For months to find a job that pays what Bumpy paid. 4 months to perform a miracle. At 8:58, Councilman Robert Halloway enters through the side door. He's wearing a navy suit, crisp white shirt, red tie. The uniform of American ambition. Behind him, 2 men in dark suits, federal agents, Marcus assumes, take positions near the podium. Patricia Halloway sits in the front row, hands folded in her lap, watching her husband with an expression Marcus can't read. At 9 o'clock exactly, Halloway steps to the microphone. "Good morning. Thank you all for coming." The cameras flash. "I'm here today to announce a joint initiative between the New York City Council and the Federal Bureau of Investigation. For too long, organized crime has operated openly in Harlem, exploiting our community, corrupting our institutions, and poisoning our future." He's reading from notes, but his voice carries genuine conviction. Effective immediately, a federal task force will begin investigating racketeering operations in Upper Manhattan. This includes illegal gambling, loan sharking, extortion, and corruption of public officials. We will be offering witness protection and immunity agreements to anyone willing to cooperate. Marcus watches the reporters scribbling, the cameras recording, the agents standing stone-faced behind Halloway. This is it. The moment Bumpy Johnson's empire begins to crumble. "I know this won't be easy," Halloway continues. "I know there are people in our community who believe that men like Ellsworth Johnson provide necessary services. That they fill gaps left by a racist system that refuses to serve black neighborhoods." He pauses. Looks directly into the cameras. But protection money isn't community service. Gambling debts aren't economic development. And fear isn't leadership. Marcus feels something twist in his chest. Because Halloway isn't wrong. Every word he's saying is true. Bumpy Johnson does run illegal gambling. Does collect protection money. Does use fear and violence, carefully, strategically, but still, to maintain control. And Marcus spent 6 years helping him do it. "We deserve better," Halloway says quietly. "Our children deserve better. And I promise you, I will not stop until Harlem is free." The room erupts in questions. "Councilman, have you received threats? Are you concerned about retaliation? Does the task force have specific targets?" Halloway holds up a hand. "I won't discuss operational details. But I will say this, I'm not afraid. Whatever comes, I'll face it knowing I did the right thing." Marcus turns and walks out before the press conference ends. He stands on the City Hall steps, breathing cold November air, feeling the weight of unemployment and 4 months and his sister's illness pressing down on his shoulders. His whole adult life, he's been running calculations. Risk versus reward. Survival versus morality. Necessity versus choice. And in the end, Patricia Halloway was right. The only thing that matters is what he wants. He wants to stop being complicit. At 10:23 a.m., Marcus walks into the offices of the NAACP Legal Defense Fund on 40 Rector Street. He asks to speak with the hiring director. The receptionist looks at him skeptically. "Do you have an appointment?" "No. But I have 6 years of experience investigating corruption, building legal cases, and navigating Harlem's political infrastructure. And I'm willing to work for half what I made before." "Doing what?" Marcus meets her eyes. "Whatever you need. As long as it's legal." She picks up the phone. 3 hours later, Marcus sits across from Theodore Marshall, the senior attorney who helped argue Brown v. Board of Education. "Your resume is impressive," Marshall says, reviewing the documents Marcus brought. "Harvard Law. Top of your class. Strong research skills." He sets the papers down. "But there's a 6-year gap here." "What were you doing?" Marcus takes a breath. "Working for Bumpy Johnson." Marshall's expression doesn't change. "Doing what?" "Research. Investigation. Finding leverage on politicians, police, business owners. Building cases that never went to court." "Why'd you stop?" "Because I realized I was helping the wrong people win." Marshall leans back in his chair. Studies Marcus for a long moment. "You understand we don't pay much. You understand the hours are long and the cases are hard and most of them we lose." "I understand. You understand that if you work here, you'll be fighting against the same systems that made men like Bumpy Johnson necessary in the first place. You'll be fighting City Hall, police departments, federal agencies that don't want to change." "I understand. Why should I trust you?" Marcus thinks about his sister. About the medication he can afford for 4 more months. About the choice he's making right now to work for principles instead of survival. "Because I'm the one who called Bumpy Johnson and told him he didn't have leverage on Robert Halloway. I'm the one who gave up my job to protect the truth." Marshall's eyebrows rise slightly. "You chose honor over employment. I chose to stop lying to myself about what I was doing." Marshall stands. Extends his hand. "We can start you at $60 a week. No benefits for the first 6 months. You'll be working on housing discrimination cases in Brooklyn. Lots of field work. Lots of doors slammed in your face." Marcus shakes his hand. "When do I start?" "Today. We've got a family in Brownsville being evicted by a landlord who won't rent to Negroes. I need someone who knows how to dig up dirt." Marcus almost laughs. "I can do that." He leaves the office with a new job that pays 1/3 what Bumpy paid, knowing he'll have to move, have to scrimp, have to find a way to explain to his sister why the medicine might stop coming. But for the first time in 6 years, he walks out of a building without feeling like he's carrying someone else's sins. Tuesday, November 18th, 11:14 a.m. The news spreads through Harlem like smoke. Federal agents raided 3 locations overnight. A social club on 142nd Street. A barber shop on Lenox Avenue. The accounting office on 145th where Marcus used to report for work. They left with boxes of documents, ledgers, client lists. Bumpy Johnson wasn't there. Hasn't been seen since Monday morning. Marcus hears about it while interviewing a woman in Brownsville whose landlord is trying to evict her for being black. She's crying, explaining how she has 3 children and nowhere to go, and Marcus is taking notes when her neighbor bursts in. "You hear? They finally got Bumpy Johnson. Feds raided everything. The woman stops crying. Looks at Marcus. You used to work in Harlem, right? Marcus keeps his expression neutral. I did. What's gonna happen now? He doesn't have an answer. Because the truth is complicated. Bumpy Johnson ran illegal operations. But he also kept the peace. Settled disputes. Made sure garbage got collected and streetlights got fixed and kids could walk to school without dodging gang crossfire. Remove him, and you don't just remove corruption. You remove order. By Wednesday afternoon, Marcus sees the consequences. 2 men shot outside a numbers spot on 138th Street, rival operators moving into territory Bumpy used to control. A grocery store on 125th burned down. The owner couldn't pay protection money to 3 different crews, all claiming jurisdiction. A 14-year-old girl assaulted walking home from school. No one to call, no one to fear, no informal justice system to make the predator disappear. The newspapers call it chaos in Harlem. Councilman Halloway calls it growing pains. Marcus calls it predictable. On Thursday, he gets a letter. No return address. Postmarked from New Jersey. Inside, a single page in Bumpy's precise handwriting. Marcus. You did the right thing. Don't doubt it. Enclosed is a check for 6 months of your sister's medication. Consider it severance pay. Use the time to build something better. I'm retiring. Leaving New York. The federal case will collapse without me. They need the head, not the body. Halloway won his war. Let him see what he won. E.J. The check is for $1,800. Marcus stares at it for a long time. Then he deposits it and uses the first payment to cover his sister's December prescription. Friday morning, Marcus is back in Brownsville, serving an eviction lawsuit on the landlord who's trying to force out the black family. The landlord, a red-faced man named Sullivan who owns 6 buildings in the neighborhood, rips up the papers. You think this scares me? I got lawyers. Real lawyers. Not some colored boy playing dress-up. Marcus smiles. Doesn't argue. Just hands him a second copy of the lawsuit. See you in court, Mr. Sullivan. He walks back to his car, feeling something he hasn't felt in years. Purpose. That afternoon, Theodore Marshall calls him into the office. The Brownsville case. You did good work. Fast research, clean documentation. Marshall sets a file on the desk. I'm assigning you something bigger. School segregation case in Queens. Parents trying to get their kids into a white school district. It's going to trial in 3 months. Marcus opens the file. Sees photographs of children. 8 years old. 9. 10. Standing outside a school that won't let them enter. We're going to lose, Marshall says quietly. The judge is a segregationist. The district has unlimited resources. The parents are terrified. Then why take it? Because somebody has to. Because even when we lose, we build precedent. We create records. We make them say out loud, in court, under oath, exactly what they believe about our children. Marshall meets his eyes. That's the work, Marcus. Not winning. Witnessing. Marcus looks at the photographs again. I'll start Monday. By the end of November, the violence in Harlem has spread. 5 people dead. Dozens injured. protection rackets multiplying like viruses, each one smaller and meaner than what Bumpy ran. Councilman Halloway holds another press conference. Promises increased police presence. Promises community investment. Promises that the chaos is temporary. But Marcus sees the truth in the newspaper photographs. Halloway looks tired. Thinner. The victory he wanted, the clean, heroic dismantling of organized crime, has turned into something messier. Something that can't be fixed with federal task forces and speeches. Patricia Halloway stops appearing at public events. Rumor is, someone threw a brick through their window. Called them traitors. Said Bumpy Johnson kept Harlem safe and the Halloways destroyed it. On December 3rd, Marcus receives another letter. This one from James Fenton. Mr. Webb. Patricia told me what you did. That you could have used me to hurt Robert and didn't. I don't remember the gun. Don't remember threatening anyone. But I believe her. The drinking erased a lot. I'm staying in Chicago. Too much pain in New York. But I wanted you to know what Robert did for me, letting me leave with money and dignity instead of a prison sentence. That was mercy. I blamed him for years because I needed someone to blame who wasn't myself. Thank you for not making my grief into a weapon. James Fenton. Marcus folds the letter carefully. Files it away with the other documents from the case that never happened. The scandal that never broke. The leverage that turned out to be nothing but human pain. March 12, 1959. 4:47 p.m. Marcus wins his first case. The school segregation lawsuit in Queens, the one Theodore Marshall said they'd lose, ends with a federal judge ordering the district to admit the black students immediately. It's a small victory. One school. 8 children. A ruling that will probably be appealed and delayed and fought for years. But it's a victory. Marcus calls his sister from a payphone outside the courthouse. Tells her the news. She cries. Says she's proud of him. Says their mother would have been proud too. He doesn't tell her that he can barely afford rent. That he's eating 1 meal a day. That the medicine money from Bumpy will run out in 2 months and he doesn't know what happens after that. He just tells her he loves her and hangs up. On the subway ride back to Manhattan, Marcus reads the afternoon paper. Page 6. Small article. Easy to miss. Former Harlem Councilman Robert Halloway announces resignation. Marcus reads it twice. Halloway is stepping down. Citing family health concerns. No mention of the violence in Harlem. No mention of the federal task force that's made 16 arrests but hasn't stopped the chaos. Just a quiet exit from a man who challenged the most powerful criminal in Harlem and won everything except what mattered. The article includes a quote. I believe that removing corruption would heal our community. I've learned that systems are more complicated than villains. That power, even illegal power, serves a function. I don't regret what I did. But I regret not understanding the cost. Marcus folds the paper. Gets off at his stop and walks to his apartment, thinking about choices and consequences and the distance between justice and order. 3 weeks later, Marcus receives one final letter. No return address. Postmarked from Miami. Inside, a newspaper clipping from the Amsterdam News. Community leaders establish Harlem Development Council. Former associates of Bumpy Johnson pledge legal business investment. The article describes a group of businessmen, many of whom used to work in Bumpy's organization, pooling resources to open legitimate businesses. A credit union for residents denied bank loans. A grocery cooperative. A legal aid clinic. At the bottom of the clipping, handwritten in Bumpy's script. You can't kill an idea. You can only transform it. The numbers money is still there. But now it's building something that doesn't require my name. Halloway was right about one thing: Harlem deserved better. He just didn't understand that better doesn't come from dismantling power, it comes from transferring it. Good luck with the law, Marcus. Don't forget where you came from. Marcus tapes the clipping to his wall. Next to his law degree. Next to the photograph of the 8 children walking into their new school. Because the truth is this: Bumpy Johnson didn't lose. Robert Halloway didn't win. And Marcus Webb learned that the distance between criminal and savior, between corruption and justice, between survival and principle, that distance is measured in choices. In moments when you decide whether to weaponize pain or protect it. Whether to serve power or serve people. Whether to calculate risk or follow conscience. Marcus never saw Bumpy Johnson again. Never heard what happened to the federal investigation. Never learned whether Halloway's family recovered from the violence his reforms unleashed. But sometimes, late at night in his small apartment, Marcus thinks about that phone call. About Bumpy releasing him before the walls closed in. About a criminal who built an empire on fear but ended it with mercy. And he wonders if the real power was never in control at all, but in knowing when to let go. The streets remember everything. The history books remember nothing. And the people caught between? They just keep choosing, one day at a time, which version of Harlem they want to build. If this story made you think about power, justice, and the choices that define us, hit that like button and subscribe. We tell the stories history tried to bury, the complicated, messy, human truth beneath the legends. Next time, the deal that saved Harlem and destroyed the man who made it.